Good morning and welcome to Community Connections, Resources, and Gardening. I'm your host, Quandra Gaines, and we're going to have a fantastic show. Stay tuned. And welcome back. This is Quandra Gaines, and you're on Community Connections, Resources, and Gardening. And today we're going to be talking to Joseph Gaskins about all the different upcoming projects that are happening statewide in Maryland. Okay, now, Joe, can we bring on Joe Gaskins? Good morning, Joe. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing fine.
That's
How are you
good.
doing this I guess we got a pretty good morning. You know what happened to me over the week over
Yes, I do.
I've been I've been so busy trying to get everything straight in my basement with all that rain. But we had a beautiful day afterwards. And so hey, look, we're
Yes, it's
rolling
really
on into
sunny
Christmas.
outside. So,
That's right.
today we're going to be talking about some upcoming projects that are going to be happening in statewide in Maryland. So,
hmm
well, let's start proceeding with that. What is the first project that's going to be
Let's
happening?
talk about transportation first and how it
Mhm.
will affect and impact individuals throughout the entire state. They are at least three to four, let's say four major projects are
Mhm.
slated for the next 1 to 5 years. Uh,
Mm.
Most of them are in the developmental stage. Funding have been provided for some of them, but let's first start with the one that has been funded, and that's the Green Line project.
Mhm.
That project is slated to extend or to connect Prince George County. For individuals who know that area, that would be
Mhm.
the
Huge.
Yes, Prince George County, the Branch Avenue route,
Mhm.
which will connect to Waldorf La Plata area. It
Hmm.
goes down, not quite down as far as La Plata, but it stops in White Plains, which is about 5 minutes from La Plata. But that's a tremendous extension, and what that would do, it would relieve that major corridor of the major transportation issues that affect two corridors. That's
Mhm.
the 210 corridor going into Washington D.C., and also the Route 5 corridor, which is the Branch Avenue corridor that takes you into Washington D.C. Now that's been a heavily populated areas in when it comes to traffic in the morning,
Mhm.
and even now it's almost like you go during the middle of the day, and it's a bit of a parking lot type situation. So the
Okay.
community down there are looking forward to that. Now you had on your show a senator before who talked about that and had secured the major funding, which was joint effort
Mhm.
of our U.S. senators, Congressman Steny Hoyer, and also the state senator in that area, Arthur Ellis.
Mhm.
Uh, from a community perspective, the transportation is one major issue that will relieve and help the average citizen. The other
Mhm.
issue, from a business perspective, is that they will create numerous jobs for the citizens in the state of Maryland in that area. And so citizens should be aware. We will be updating um, throughout the this next year
Mhm.
of progress of that particular project. Now,
Mhm.
the next major project, which was on hold, was the I-270 and I-495 project, and that's billions of dollars. I mean, probably 6 billion and counting.
Mm-hmm.
and that's a P3 project. For those who don't know what a P3 project, there's a little education for you. What state and jurisdictions have done is rather than to try to finance projects using only state and federal funds, they've
Mm-hmm.
gone to private industry who have money to invest. And they have asked them to submit RFPs or
Mm-hmm.
proposals for development of different projects. They are now doing that same methodology to fund school projects and also to fund highways. That corridor, there's been a real quagmire in terms of transportation backup when you hit the Rockville area for
Mm-hmm.
individuals who live in the area. When you hit the Rockville area and you're going toward 270 Gaithersburg
Mm-hmm.
area, that's a nightmare, even considering the fact that you got major highways that have been constructed over the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I-270 still is a horrible route to take. People sit in that area and they sit in that area for hours at a time, especially during
Mm-hmm.
rush hour traffic. The that particular project again will it's not a transit project, but it is a project that will allow for individuals who are in their cars
Mm-hmm.
to be relieved that of that hours in traffic when that takes off.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, the prior administration, Hogan's administration, that has that on the books. It's being evaluated at this particular point in time by the new administration who's coming in.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at that project and how they're going to about going about moving with that plan or whether they will create another plan
Okay.
to but the project is still a major project and will be funded by the new administration coming in, the Moore Miller Found administration.
Okay.
And as you know, that administration has been forth really forward in terms of its thinking, and it has pressed for African American and
Mm-hmm.
minority participation. And so we look forward to that taking place, providing minority companies with opportunities to construct, to build, to participate, to create a vibrant community, and to
Mm-hmm.
hire local. In that Baltimore um, corridor, as well as in the Prince George County, as well as in Montgomery County. That project has a broad reach in terms of effect, and because it will indeed provide those jobs that sometimes
Mm-hmm.
are taken by individuals who are from the state of Pennsylvania and West Virginia normally. But in this administration, the focus is going to be making sure that those jobs are dedicated locally for
Mm-hmm.
individuals within the state of Maryland. So that's one thing that we should look forward to as well. From a community perspective, it's always good to look at what's there. And sometimes the job situations are so dedicated and focused on individuals who are in the technical field
Mm-hmm.
or the other field is sometimes we forget about individuals who don't deem that it's that they really don't want to spend the money going to college and getting advanced degrees. They want to go and they want to make a living, and this allows for many years,
Mm-hmm.
5, 10 years at a minimum on these two projects alone to provide continuous jobs. Um, and the next job that's a major project, that job provider, let me say that,
Mm-hmm.
job provider that is that's right in your backyard, and that's the Red Line in Baltimore. That project, that Red Line is a transit project
Mm-hmm.
that would affect the individuals within Baltimore City, providing them access across the city. Um, and it has at least gone through 4 administrations without funding.
Yeah.
And yeah, always talking, but nothing constructively done. Individuals who have watched that particular project and know that the fate of that particular project could change the entire dynamics of Baltimore City within Baltimore City. We can look around and we can look at and what's in Washington D.C.
Mm-hmm.
before and after, and you can go back to the beginning of the transit system in DC when they first started. I mean, it was a bus only system, in which Baltimore City pretty much is at this time. But
Mm-hmm.
when you put the major transportation uh, components in place, which include I think about 6 to 7 initial lines running through DC and connecting all of DC, and then reaching out and connecting DC with Virginia, Northern Virginia, and Northern
Mm-hmm.
Virginia with Montgomery and Prince George County. What happened in DC? DC became a major um, growth center.
Mm-hmm.
It is probably one of the highest growing in terms of population and wealth capacity areas within this region, notwithstanding the growth of the rural areas. The city has grown to the fact that on every major component where you had a lack of vibrant activity, you have it in DC now, and that's what major transportation planning and quarters does. It not only provides for individuals to be transported quickly from one place to the other at a reduced rate, and when I use that point of transportation at reduced rates,
Mm-hmm.
costs of moving from in transportation, as we know, every day when we step into our cars and we have to put gas in our vehicles at $3 a gallon
Mm-hmm.
or above, we know the impact that on individuals who really don't have the who are budgeting and are extremely impacted by by getting in that vehicle. And we
Mm-hmm.
also know the impact of that vehicle when it becomes to emissions and carbon. Um, and damaging as it is, new ideas in the industry in terms of mass transit is necessary. Now, the last major quarter of transportation component is one that you might not have heard of, and you will start to hear a lot about that, and that is the transportation vehicle which will take individuals
Mm-hmm.
from Union Station with a stop in Baltimore, stop in Delaware, a stop in Philadelphia, and a stop in New York, and that system is called the Northeast Maglev. It's a
Mm-hmm.
high speed train that will take you from downtown DC to New York in an hour, 1 hour.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's the fantastic part about it, is that it is magnetic
Mm-hmm.
driven. The speeds will take you to 300 to 400 miles an hour on the train, and it's also predominantly an underground system, so you won't see it. You'll just leave Union Station. You'll If you're going to New York, you'll make possibly three stops, and you're at your destination. Nowhere in high speed transit has that been a possibility before.
Okay.
Uh, that project is a career project. That's 20 years in construction. It hasn't, at this particular stage, it hasn't really reached the level
Mm-hmm.
where it's ready to kick off. We're working in the and diligently trying to make sure that we get the supports in the community, and it's really urgent that citizens who are located in Prince George County,
Mm-hmm.
Montgomery County, Baltimore City, all
Mm-hmm.
come out and support the project. What it will do
Mm-hmm.
is provide not only for individuals to be able to be transported from one location to the other at high speeds
Mm-hmm.
of those four locations, but it also will provide major jobs that will change the dynamic of transportation in the region. When I say major jobs, I'm talking about in construction, but also during the entire time that it will be operating as well. So there's a real good future for this particular region in transportation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to share with you another major project.
Before you do that, how can community members or in Baltimore and Prince George's County and Montgomery County, how can they become involved? Where do they go? What website do they go to? Who do they call?
Yeah, for all of those, we're gonna provide that on another show. But this is what you need to, what they need to do. They can
Okay.
do at the particular moment. You can always reach out to me. But on our shows, we have a Wednesday show that we do as well
Yes, we do.
with you. And on those shows, we're going to have individuals who are going to be on with presentations.
Okay.
So you're going to be informed throughout the year on where they're going
Okay.
and the progress and what you could actually do coming out to public hearings. We'll have individuals who will come on the show
Mm-hmm.
to present as well on
Okay.
those metrics to it too as well. But right now, what they need to do, they can do immediately, is
Okay.
call your elected officials,
Okay.
Baltimore City, and they can call your individuals who are, if you're from Prince George's and Prince George County, those are your senators. Then most of these projects are impacted by one to two to three groups of individuals: your
Okay.
legislative body, state legislative body, the local body, governing body,
Mm-hmm.
and your federal uh, elected officials as well.
Okay.
So your U.S. If we start at the U.S. senator, your U.S. senators at the moment would be Ben Cardin.
Okay.
Your other U.S. senator is Van Hollen, Senator Van
Mm-hmm.
Hollen. Congressman Mfume.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore City is a major player. Baltimore County, you have Dutch Rutherford.
Mm-hmm.
Dutch has been around for many years. He's
Mm-hmm.
there and he knows about these transportation projects. You can call them at the federal level, and you can tell them that you are supporting the project and you want to know more about it, about what his
Mm-hmm.
office is doing in terms of supporting each of these particular projects.
Okay.
Uh, let's drop down to your local levels.
Okay.
The the three most uh, effective uh, areas for these particular projects, because they're predominantly Baltimore driven, Prince George
Mm-hmm.
County driven, and Montgomery County driven, while you got input in DC. We are the state of Maryland. So we are more concerned about our elected officials in those particular areas. So
Okay.
we have, of course, the mayor of
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore City, uh, Scott, Mayor Scott. In the Prince George County, you have the county exec,
Mm-hmm.
and we are well aware of Angela Olsa Brooks, who
Mm-hmm.
has for I think Angela is in her second term, beginning in January,
Mm-hmm.
and also well aware of Montgomery County Ehrlich, who is now in his second term as the county exec from Baltimore City. Now, Baltimore County also will play a part, but these lines are essentially running through those three major corridors. And it's vitally important that you call them. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the next step that you have um, is the council members in
Okay.
each of the areas. Yes, the council members of it, because if the council members don't like it, it doesn't go anywhere. But quite often, the council members are not spurred by uh, the voter. and you have other individuals who are telling them what they are doing or influencing them.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is a good project sometimes get held up
Mm-hmm.
because of, and we call it influence. Um, and the influence is not necessarily a positive influence. It's an influence because it's being leveraged by
Mm-hmm.
individuals whose job is to make sure that they get what they want out of a project before it moves forward. And sometimes it holds up the success level. And that's what's happened with Baltimore City with the Red Line for many, many years. It's because of individuals and the right people not being behind the project or against the project moving
Mm-hmm.
particular reason, it just sits there and it never moves forward. So I encourage the listening audience to call your elected officials on the county council or city council, and then Prince George County on the county council, and tell them that you want them to support the maglev project, you
Mm-hmm.
want them to support the red line project, and you also want them to support the I-270 corridor, which will relieve the transportation congestion along that 270 corridor. And they one of the major projects that we've not seen but's in the works
Okay.
is called the ACUX Green Energy Project, and that's slated for Sparrows Point.
Mm-hmm.
Sparrows Point project, and for individuals who don't know where Sparrows Point is, and I will give it to Baltimore City as a major city that's that has the overall oversight. Right now, it's been redistricted to be in Mfume's district. So
Mm-hmm.
that particular project will bring about 10,000 jobs to Baltimore City, and it's a major manufacturing project. But what it does, it used nuclear fission to create energy, creates methanol.
Mm-hmm.
So we as individuals who are not as knowledgeable about energy and the use of fuel production sources
Mm-hmm.
uh, are basically stuck on gasoline as our main energy source and diesel fuel, which are all fossil fuels. But technology has presented another method of providing fuel. Uh,
Okay.
that is the creation through a nuclear process of creating methanol fuel. Now, the methanol fuel will become a much more inexpensive
Mm-hmm.
uh, to be used, but the plan for that uh, production of the methanol will focus the use of that on major transportation vehicles. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
your ships, rather than using diesel or fossil fuel,
Mm-hmm.
they will be using methanol. Your trains, rather than using diesel or coal, they'll
Okay.
be they'll be using methanol, which is a clean green energy. Your tractor trailers, they will be using methanol. The plan is to push and phase this in over the next 10 years. There is there is a requirement that uh, each
Mm-hmm.
state in the U.S. Convert to green energy resources, and a lot of them are using wind energy as a way to do it. And when we say wind energy, we think more of in Maryland of the locations that are along the eastern shore corridor because they are typically located offshore, and you don't see them. But in the Ocean City area, along the water there, St. Mary's
Mm-hmm.
County, in those areas, and because Baltimore and Prince George's are not in that area, we don't see that. But that's in our more rural areas. They've already installed lines there,
Mm-hmm.
transmission lines that transport all the energy produced from these circulating, and you can look at them. They're your old-fashioned wind energy, but they are really uh, you back during our day we called them windmills, but now they call turbines. And
Mm-hmm.
those turbines are huge, huge turbines. Those turbines are presently in production.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and they are also at Sparrows Point 2 location for assembly. So you're going to have two generating major generators of employment in the area that's going to create those jobs that are for individuals who are labor driven, unions, employees, and they will pay uh, training
Mm-hmm.
for an average of $60,000 annually for a person who has no degree whatsoever, doesn't have to go to college, doesn't have to do any of that. They'll
Mm-hmm.
be trained and they'll be paid while they train.
Okay.
Yes, and when they are finished training, they'll be earning a salary of $120,000 to start in the industry, and it's a manufacturing component, as once was in Baltimore City, and once were in our major car manufacturers. You had these blue collar jobs, and that
Okay.
those jobs were vitally important with in terms of providing our parents and our grandparents
Right.
up to sustainability in major cities like Detroit, Chicago, and all that.
So,
So
Joe, so can I ask you a question?
yeah,
With all these different things that are happening statewide and in Baltimore City, why should the constituents care? I mean, most of the time we're given great ideas or great projects, and then sometimes we're the ones that are missing out on the jobs, because most of the time the jobs may be advertised in the outer counties and not in Baltimore City. Like you said, transportation, getting to those places to do the apprenticeships or those trainings is going to be hard if these existing with the existing transportation woes that we have now, with the buses changing from, we have the circular, we have the this, we have that, and it's like confusion. When you say like redlining has been major in Baltimore City. You have the black, what is it, the black butterfly and the white owl. So the white owl gets all the different things, and the black butterfly are the ones who are often not allowed to um, have access to the things that most people have in the areas of the white owl. Another thing is, with all these different trainings and with all these different types of energy, do you think that you're going to get a lot of feedback or a lot of pushback from the existing utility companies such as Alexon, BGE, Pepco, Sunco? So when you talk about wind energy, which I have wind energy, um, which is a lot cheaper for me. And then you're telling me with methane is going to be a lot cheaper. How can somebody get to learn about this? How can somebody begin to start educating themselves? And where can they go to get the right information?
yeah. Let me focus on one thing that you said, and that's the major energy companies, of course. Um, Whenever companies move in and start to dominate a certain area, which they have,
Mm-hmm.
Dominion, Echelon, Pepco, all those individuals when they do it. But what's what's a dynamic in this, and that's at play, is the fact that this has been mandated, and it's not um, something that they can block or stop. You if you don't do it, the states, you're not going to get any money coming from transportation or from the federal government, and your budget is going to be restricted, and no governor in the country is going to not to allow their budget to be restricted in terms of them accessing money for that particular state. Now they will fight hard
Mm-hmm.
for their constituents, as you would see in special states like West Virginia, who have coal mines and coal industry.
Mm-hmm.
there in that area. They will fight hard for the individuals or the not for the individuals because the individuals in the coal miners only go to work and they are just pawns in the situation. Most of them don't live to be 50 years old. They die from black lung cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you have somebody on the outside who's pushing it, who is not influenced by the industry, and we know that the U.S. senator from West Virginia has fought long and hard and held up one of the major bills that Biden had proposed because he was concerned about the energy bill and the energy bill and how that would affect his particular state. And they always sell us on this one that the jobs are important, but the jobs are important, yes. But industry is the reality, is the face really that is driving. It's not the jobs. I mean, when you kill off your voters or your citizens or your workforce because they work in these coal mines and they die at 50 and the kids now become again coal miners. It's
Mm-hmm.
really not. If you study it, you know that it's not all about the workers and the voters in those areas. It's really about the people who own stock in those companies. And that's why when you said you're absolutely right, when you bring up major companies like Constellation in those
Mm-hmm.
areas, they have a vested interest to make sure that whatever they have on the table is doing well. So if they can't get in at some level and
Mm-hmm.
participate, then they're going to be anti, and they use lobbyists as a term, and they pay them well, and the lobbyists influence our delegates and our senators and our congressmen.
Mm-hmm.
And what it takes 25, 30 years before we get a red line in Baltimore City because of the process. And that's what happens doing that. Now, let's talk about another point that you brought up, and that's the point about the poor guy sitting on the car. The guy who is there, who we know who's been clearly defined as squeegee boys.
Okay.
I won't list to focus on them so much, but I'll use that as a generic example of not having access to jobs or well-paying jobs. How can they actually get in and participate on this?
Right.
This is why this industry is being created, and this is why what ACUX has done in their green energy manufacturing facility. They have met with major players in Baltimore City, and they have tried to schedule a meeting with Mfume.
Mm-hmm.
They have met with Biden, of course. They've met with because it's such a mega industry in
Mm-hmm.
terms of producing and replacing fossil fuels. They've had to meet with individuals in Texas. They have to meet with individuals who are in every major fuel production location who have major investment dollars tied up into that industry, the gasoline
Mm-hmm.
and the fuel fossil fuel industry. They had to meet with them and give them alternative plans on how you're not going to be hurt when this new industry takes place. So that's being done. But now again, focusing on the smaller guy,
Mm-hmm.
the person who wants a job. How do I get to a job? Well, you're gonna get to the job with an ACUX project because they have already made uh, the plans, built it in their plans to focus on the 5,000 jobs directly coming from inner city Baltimore City to be those individuals who are targeting those cities who
Mm-hmm.
in that within a certain, I will use that deemed unemployable or deemed not in the system now.
Right.
That's the individual that they are seeking for training. They've
Okay.
already made their commitments to do that. And they're dedicating 50% of all job produced to come from a segment within Baltimore City, not Prince George County, not anywhere else, Baltimore City alone. Now, the how do you get to a job? Well, that when you're in a training program, the training is going to be focused in your area. So you're not going to have to travel
Hmm.
15, 20 miles outside of Baltimore City to be
Okay.
trained. You're going to be locally within the city. And there's not going to be excuse. If you could get out of your house and get up to a food store or a restaurant or anywhere else that you want to go in the city, you can get to this place for training. And not only when you get there for training, guess what? You're going to have a paycheck at the end of the day. And for those who've never realized what $60,000 equate to annually, it's quite a bit of money for individuals who've not had jobs at all. It's a tremendous amount. And then eventually go from there to where you're at $120,000 a year annually is phenomenal. That's more than some doctors
Hmm.
are making coming out of after spending uh, many years trying to get that doctor medical degree. They're not making that kind of money. So this is a very serious industry that we need to be focusing on. Now, how do you know where we are and how you what actions you should take?
Right.
Now, hopefully on our shows that we do on Wednesday, and so stay tuned for this. We can give you an update
Okay.
how where you need to go, and we will have your senators and your congressmen.
Okay.
We'll have your elected officials come on and talk about that. And you need to tell other people in the communities to tune into those shows, the shows that are here. This show, the Community Connection Resource and Gardening Show, and on Political Cipher on Wednesday evenings.
Thank
A
you
show
for the promo. Thank you for the promo, Joe.
you
So I have one
you will
question
get
for you.
that.
Okay. Where can they reach you at the Maryland
Oh yes, you can
Business
reach me.
Clergy?
Yeah, you can reach me at www.merlin no www.businessclergy.com. You
Okay.
can reach me there for the website.
Hmm.
You can reach me directly at 240-286-8567.
Okay. Can you repeat that again?
286-8567.
All right. Now we're going to take a brief break, and then we're going to come back and talk about the other special projects that are going on in Baltimore and in the statewide. And then we're going to talk about how you can be involved. Stay tuned.
I'm Leon Thomas with the Leon Thomas Group. Podcast, virtual events, webinars, streaming shows, and so much more. We want to be your partner in all things virtual.
All right. I'm glad you came back to join us. We were talking about special projects and things that are going on in Baltimore City. And most importantly, how you can get involved and how you can reach people who are playing the major roles in these different projects. And one of them is Mr. Joseph Gaskins. All right. Mr. Gaskins, now tell us about the other special projects that are going on in Maryland.
Well, for those who don't know,
Mm-hmm.
recently in the state of Maryland, there was a major initiative to bring sports betting,
Mm-hmm.
which came on after all of your casinos were in
Okay.
operation. And quite often, what the state and special interest groups do is they push projects out and they claim that the projects are real money makers for the communities, or the tax dollars are going to support your schools, and everybody uses schools as examples. But when you get to the core of that, you'll find that that's not the reason why those vehicles or that industry was created. That of course it has to be driven by labor,
Mm-hmm.
but when you go into when you go into stores now, you go into your local stores, your gas stations, your Wawas, uh, your places where you stop, and what is common, and you see it, and you've noticed a change over the last year or so,
Mm-hmm.
where they are converting those locations um, to removing all of the cashiers from the stores, and they're putting in the screens where
Yes,
you.
I've seen those. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what that does is it takes away the job. So yes, it was when they introduced that store, or the store came in for licenses. They talked about the impact it would have on the community, and they talked about the
Mm-hmm.
jobs. And then 2 or 3 years later, then they eliminate the jobs, and the jobs, only jobs that you have really of any impact. And some of the stores are the people who are the food handlers who are producing the product. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you'll find that that's not just something that's happened there. I mean, you go to a Lowe's,
Mm-hmm.
you go to your store, your food stores, your major chains of food stores, and you'll see the same thing there. You see 8 to 10 aisles, and all of them are dedicated to uh, you using anybody else but a person. So everything is now moving to be automated,
Mm-hmm.
and so the jobs are not there. So initially, when we were sold on the gambling,
Mm-hmm.
and we were sold on the horseshoes of the world, the MGMs of the world, we were sold on jobs that would pay living wage,
Mm-hmm.
and we were sold on the fact that money coming from them would go to the schools. Well, effectively,
No.
the that is no, there's no, it has not happened. The jobs, uh, uh, really, you're just a person who's being used in the process, as until they can find something else, a newer and a more economical way to do this. You're not, you're just uh, a pawn in the entire process of doing that. Now, in the sports betting, I'll move to sports betting, which was done last year. It was a continuation of the of the what I described as a move to legalize gambling throughout the entire state, and they were successful. That was the last phase of it, with
Mm-hmm.
exception, and that they were successful with doing it, but they were not successful with including black folks in that process. The black folks don't have a stake in any of that, but yet we are the largest user of those particular facilities. We spend our money in those locations. And the return is, I think, about 25, 30 percent of those individuals actually will win.
Mm-hmm.
The other 60% of individuals will lose. That's just the way the machines are set up to operate. So it's just, so individuals who justify it says, okay, well, it's recreation, I like to do it. But from a business person's perspective, I would say that I would deem that it would be more enjoyable if I saw some black people who own those particular facilities
Mm-hmm.
who are benefiting from that. I mean, you had in Baltimore City, you had an individual by the name of Lou Willie Adams.
Mm. Yes, I do.
Okay, and DC, you had the Wims,
Mm-hmm.
who were major players in the numbers games, but and they did extremely well, and they're still they developed a lot of successful politicians. They
Mm-hmm.
helped a lot of businesses, and they
Mm-hmm.
became the bank for much of what is Baltimore and
Mm-hmm.
of what was DC. Um, what we're trying to push in this last phase, which is the betting, sports betting, that
Okay.
it passed last year, but it passed again with no African Americans at the table.
Well, I have
So
a concern. I have a concern. So if we have the lottery, we have the lotto, we have people who are struggling to make ends meet. And then we have this incentive that we're saying, hey, come on over here and spend your last pay of earnings. Don't worry about feeding your children. Just come on in here because you can win the $4.4 million in the lotto or any of those things. And yet now we have sports betting where you can go out and spend your earnings, and then they're not looking at how devastating that can be to a family who is basically living off of check by check. They're not looking at the fact of incorporating some kind of financial literacy, or saying, okay, when you get to this level, I'm not saying you can separate them, but is this your last dollar? Because most people, I know I have an uncle who spends like $67 a week on lotto and the lottery, the three phase, the 5 phase, all these different things. So how is this being a benefit to Baltimore? How is sports betting going to make it better for Baltimore residents, so the families, the older folks who are spending $200 a month on the pick 3 and the pick 5, and or they're paying, or they're going to these different places. To me, it's devastating, because for me, it just means that it's breaking down more families. It's making people go further down in their finances, and it's bringing more people to the homeless phase because they can't live.
What you're saying is true. But on even more so, I have when I mentioned those two names, the Williams and the Willie Adams, what they had was, if I was spending my money and I was betting and I was playing the numbers, I knew who I was spending my money with.
Right.
And those individuals were giving something back to the community. And individuals within the communities that were being impacted, Black folk, African Americans who spent the money, were getting the money, getting back. At least they were getting back. You made them more wealthy, but you played, and if you hit the number, it was in DC or somewhere in that area where you played your number because you were playing with them. But now, if you play those numbers of the Mega Millions or the Powerball, most of the times you'll find somebody out in Arizona or some other state who wins those billion-dollar jackpots, and they're not locally spent. So all of your money then is taken out of Baltimore City, taken out of Prince George County, with all those where the numbers show that that system, the lottery system, is supported by Black people. We spend more money in the lottery than any other group, or any other ethnic group out there, but the return is not there. So this legislative session, what we've done to try to change the dynamic there is to at least get at least one entity that'll be at the table who will be an African American, and that person will have a system in place where he can put in place within the Black areas, the Black restaurants, and those places that want to do this, and the individuals will benefit because they will get money coming from the system, and they will be paid to those machines on the inside to do sports betting. All the money won't go to MGM and those other large entities that are Bally's and all those entities there. We'll have a Black person who will be responsible for that. And those machines, when they are in play, they'll be in Black establishments. Now, that's not to say that I'm irrelevant of what the negative impacts, because those negative impacts are there. But at least you'll have a Black person at the table. We passed a betting program that didn't have nobody who was African American playing a major role in it at all. It's devastating to see that our legislators will go to Annapolis and allow for such a dynamic to take place where you design a system that excludes black folk, and it's constantly being done.
Mm-hmm.
So education is the key, and hopefully this becomes a start that we do on community base in the communities on Saturday mornings. We talk about it, and you can then voice your concerns, and we'll create the momentum that you will then start to call your political person, and
Mm-hmm.
you tell them, I don't like this. We will tell you of bills that are going to be created on Saturday mornings, for example, that you should be watch in Annapolis.
Mm-hmm.
You need to call on those particular bills, and we're going to tell you the economic impact on those particular bills. And we're going to give you the number of the legislator to call who is chairing the committee
Okay.
or that committee. And when they don't do what they're supposed to be doing for the voters in that particular district, we will tell you how they voted. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's up to you at that particular point in time whether you want that to continue to take place or whether you want better representation. And that's I think if we're able to do that, Q, um, for the next year, I think we're going to see new dynamics in the state of Maryland. I'm very pleased that we have a new governor
Mm-hmm.
here, and I think this new governor is all his. He ran on the slogan that "Leave no one behind." So leaving no one behind means you community, not leaving you behind, not leaving your children behind.
Mm-hmm.
And because I sit on his transition uh, uh, committee team, I have some impact.
Mm-hmm.
With a few other individuals, and I talk to him. Believe me, I'm going to be sharing everything that comes from the community with him.
Mm-hmm.
So, so really you're going to get a vehicle. You have a vehicle, so use it. Use these Saturday morning, use these Wednesday shows to get informed, be informed of what's happening in the community. Use them to express your concern. Use them to come back and say, well, look, I reached out and I couldn't get nothing done. So the only way we change the dynamic in our financial plight
Mm-hmm.
is to stay involved and for you to be informed. Now we can do two things. We can do one of two things on the shows. We can keep you informed. All right. Now it's up to you to be the vehicle and the source that then express your concerns. And
Mm-hmm.
expressing your concerns will be to us, and expressing your concerns to your person that you elected for office. That is the new dynamic, and that's the way a political system is supposed to work and work for all
Mm-hmm.
in the community. And hopefully in 2023, Q, you'll be on point, making all this happening, and we'll be supporting you in the background on providing the
Okay.
advice to the community.
So, on that note, I want to say it is very important that you look at shows such as Community Connections, Resources in Gardening. And there, Joe did reference the Wednesday night show at 7 o'clock called Political Cipher, where we really get into the politics of business, government, communities. It is very important that you begin to educate yourself of who is representing you on the city, the state, and the federal level. Another thing, you need to know where to go, who to talk to. You can utilize Maryland Business Clergy. You can utilize calling your delegates, your city council persons, even your community association leaders. It's very important that if we do not stand together as a community, communities building neighborhoods, neighborhoods building stronger structures so that we can begin to chip down the existing infrastructures in the city and make our voices heard. So, Joe, do you have any last words before we go?
Yeah, I just want everybody to have a very very prosperous New Year and excellent holiday season, and looking forward to keeping you informed in 2023.
On that note, we're going to say have a wonderful and safe holiday season. We look forward to seeing you in the new year. Check out our different shows. Give us some feedback. If you would like to be a guest, or if you would like to have a segment, a time on the show, please give me a call or check me out on my email at quandra.gaines@gmail.com. And on that note, have a wonderful and safe holiday season and Happy New Year. Goodbye.